Based on my calculations from reviewing messages that I've made to various people on the internet, as well as my own memory, which is quite good, I have gone outside less than 12 times this year. A while back, earlier this year, I made a video called I have went outside for the first time in 6 months or something like that, and it was about exactly what you think about, what you think it was about. Um, Previously, when my wife was living here, I also wouldn't go outside, you know? She was living here, and we would spend pretty much all of our time inside together because we both like being inside. And I wasn't lonely in any real capacity because I had that person there, that I could do all these different things with and conversate with, and I could just be in my own room as we were doing this. And she also had the preference, for that type of lifestyle, so it worked very well. Um, and then eventually she goes back to Canada and has not come back since. Um, and for the first, 2, 3 months, it was quite difficult for me to adapt back to the change, back to the way my life had been for the majority of it, having been homeschooled, having dropped out of school as well for the very brief period of time I went to public school. I lived this lifestyle, and I liked this lifestyle as well. Needless to say, when you get used to having someone to talk to all the time, having sex every day, having this sort of connection, it takes a moment to adapt to where you are now. But after 3 months went by, I found myself completely accepting of my situation, and I felt, like I had before, except better, because I was doing something productive with my time in isolation, which has been language learning. And because of that way that I'm spending my time in this organized, segmented, goal-oriented way, I find myself very happy in this situation. Even when I wasn't, goal-oriented and I was more aimless in terms of my activities, I think many of the activities that I focused on provided a lot of happiness for me because they had goals inside of them, things like single-player video games and stuff like this. Reading books, which I did a lot of, consuming massive amounts of educational information on the internet, educational content. This also feels very fulfilling. It feels like you're, feeding your thirst for knowledge. It feels like you're completing a goal of some sort. But I didn't have a hardcore task that I was working on outside of exercise, I was exercising every day from inside of my house, which I could do through lifting weights, I could do through running and the like, and that's still how I do exercise. But, aside from exercising, I didn't have any concrete or distinct goals until I took up language learning about a year ago now, which has been an incredible experience. As I've said many times in these videos, now I can read all sorts of things in Spanish. I can watch all sorts of YouTube videos for natives. It's really fun. It gives me what feels like an expanded perspective on the internet, which has essentially been my home, for over a decade now. And it's strange because I find myself in this very car dependent place. I find myself without many desires to go out because it's so hot, and I don't find the people that I could find out there very agreeable, you know. I don't like their sort of non-confrontational nature, or you know, the judgmental things that you find about many people. All of this, you know, the subtleties of their behaviors I find very disgusting, and very upsetting. And so I found myself significantly more stable emotionally just staying indoors, focusing on the things that I like and the things that I care about. You know, I remember back when I was talking openly about substance use and things like that on this channel, back when that was a part of my life. I think in every instance where I felt the need to analyze that, I would always come back to the same thing. The hell of interacting with other people. The fact that those substances made it to where I could manage, you know, tolerating other people's existence. Where I could manage, you know, holding a conversation, having to be around them, and actually be in that world, feeling like I was going through the worst torture. But I don't have to deal with that from inside of my room, you know, and so I'm not contributing to a dark, you know, illicit economy from the inside of my room. I'm just existing. I'm living. And that's the other thing too, is that when I was in the outside world, it didn't feel like I was living. It didn't feel like I could focus on the things that I cared about. It felt like my life was totally subservient to obligation. And the only way that I could manage to fulfill those obligations was by drugging myself into oblivion. I didn't know any other way to do it after having tried so many times. And, you know, eventually I just said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to live in that kind of world. And now I'm doing something different.